Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy Saturday. Thank you for joining us here. We'll be talking about the experience of dealing with Valentine's Day after discovering intimate betrayal. We know what a sensitive time this is, and we're hoping to give you some tools, answer some questions, try to help you out so that way you can go into this holiday feeling a little more confident. So, first off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Monifa Alice Adding. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a certified clinical partner specialist. I have been working at Banyan Therapy Group for around 5 years, give or take. And
I
what
think
else is there to
that's
say
more,
about me? I
probably more than that.
specialize working with sex addicts, as well as partners and couples and individuals. And I also deal a lot with sex therapy topics that come up. I specialize in that also. And Dan, you would like to say something about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Dan Drake. I'm an MFT as well. I'm CSAT supervisor and a clinical partner special supervisor as well. So happy to join you all. We know that this topic can be really difficult, especially around Valentine's Day. So we're just really, grateful that you're all here, that we can provide this resource for, to answer any questions that you have, and then to kind of give support, however else we can during this time that can be really triggering.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And I will just reiterate, I know I said it before, but just please keep your cameras off so we can hide your identities. We want you to feel comfortable. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section so we'll get to all of them at the end and answer, but your names or anything will not show up. We want to keep you as confidential and safe as possible. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Yeah, the PowerPoint.
I do. Gotta love Zoom. Where's my share screen button? Wasn't popping up.
Yeah, and feel free if there's questions along the way or things that you want to dive more into. We're happy to do that if that's more helpful for you all. So
Okay.
just put it in the chat.
Can you see the presentation?
Mhm. Yep,
Okay. And is it just, I never know which Zoom, is it just the presentation or are you seeing my whole screen?
we can just see the presentation. At least that's all I can
Perfect.
see.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure. Okay, so Dan, I'm gonna take a second to go over the objectives.
Yeah, so when we thought about today, some themes that often come up that are triggering or difficult for Valentine's Day, we thought we'd address. Again, we can address other things if you all want. Just let us know if there's some things that you would like us to address today. But mainly, we want to talk about creating a self-care plan for the day. So managing triggers, how to care for yourself, make this day kind of reclaim the day for how you want it to be. Also, we can know that gift giving can be really triggering. So we're going to talk about how to, think about considering gifts for the day. Also, for partners, making the day what you want it to be. So being okay with it not being okay, that whatever the fantasy around the day that it is, or that we kind of make it up to be, just sort of reclaiming it for what you want it to be. Also talking about romance and sex expectations for the day, and then anything else you all want to cover. That's our plan.
So, why Valentine's Day, first and foremost? There's a lot of holidays. I feel like they're all going to be sensitive. There's a natural sensitivity to holidays in general. We're talking about intimate betrayal just because, holidays that were once happy are now scarred. Those memories are scarred. So, Valentine's Day is a little bit more heightened because it's the day of love. And that's probably the last thing you want to be talking about or hearing about. And it's surrounding you everywhere. You see the red hearts and teddy bears and everything. And it just conjures up more intense feelings when maybe around some other holidays or maybe not, but we know just in general, Valentine's Day can be extra sensitive. Um, for the betrayed partner, like I mentioned, what was once happy memories are no longer happy memories. So you're already in a grieving stage, and now the extra grieving comes around during Valentine's Day. Um, the gifts and things, things that you might like before, which we'll get more into gift giving before. You'll get more into gift giving. May not necessarily like now, like lingerie and stuff may not be the best gift to give right now. So we'll go into more detail as to what that is and how to go around that. For those on the sex addict side, you want to show your love, and then you want to do it on Valentine's Day. But then you got to be careful about how you go about doing that, because what you did before is not going to go over now, because things are different. The experience is different. Everything is just different. So that's why we want to talk about Valentine's Day in particular when talking about these holidays, because it's the day of love and everything is just extra heightened, because love is just the opposite way of how you're feeling at this moment.
Can I add that to that too?
So,
I think this day is also a day that's built up about some fantasy experience of
mm,
relationship too. So I think that also it's this idealized picture of romance and relationships, and I think that's hard enough for anyone on this day. But then you add to this the experience of betrayal trauma, and that becomes even more heightened. So I think just being really aware of this fantasy experience, and especially if for anyone that's the betrayer, so that the addict in this case, knowing that going back to maybe what you might have had before, or this picture of what you idealized, what you want it to be, we have to really see with where we're at right now, just joining, the relationship with where it is in this very moment versus trying to get to some sort of fancy picture of someday.
yeah. Yeah, because the fantasy is already hard enough without any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of triggers, I know we're only a few days out from Valentine's Day, but I would just invite you all, and this is particularly for partners, to really get ahead of the triggers as much as possible. So if you can imagine, what do you imagine might be the most difficult thing about the day? Is it, dinner? Is it some whatever? Maybe there's something from the past that was especially unique or special about the day. If there was something special from the past, that may be very triggering for the present. So just being really aware, being mindful of what times of the parts of the day or parts of the experience might be the most triggering, and coming up with a plan for those as much as possible. So, and we'll talk a little bit about caring for yourself through this, but I think just if you can analyze as much as you can, project forward what parts of the day or parts of the experience are maybe the most difficult, and then to communicate those in a safe way as possible. So for addicts, this can be really difficult, but making sure that you're able to hear it in a non-defensive way. Whatever your partner needs is what we need to do this day. So if it means I don't even want to acknowledge the day at all, or I want it to be a day where we acknowledge grief and pain, and I don't want it to be about romance, that's all fine. That's all fine for the day. Um, it also may mean, and especially on the addict side, if you already have a list of written boundaries, make sure you review those. Make sure you know you're following those. You should do this always, but especially during this day. And for partners, you may need a few more boundaries for that day. Maybe there's extra boundaries around touch, that you just need a little bit more space physically or mentally, emotionally. So look at your boundaries and being able to communicate those. Um, if you There's a bunch of grounding exercises. We could talk about some of those if that'd be helpful, but just making sure if you're feeling triggered, take whatever time and space you need for yourself for that day. It could be, breathing is always a good thing. So getting into your body, getting into your breath, staying in the present, grounding yourself, literally, digging your feet into the floor, feeling your feet on the floor if you start to feel kind of spacey or dissociated. Give yourself a lot of grace too, because when triggers come, it may affect your thinking or processing, and you may feel a little bit foggier or not have as much clarity. So just give yourself a lot of grace for the day. Maybe that means having extra plans for childcare for the day if you've got kids, that you don't have to do quite as much as other days. Or if maybe that's a grounding thing for you to be around the kids and not have to think about a romantic relationship, that's fine too. But yeah, I think just looking at what your unique needs might be for the day, and then honoring that. So you don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it. These are things that you need, and being able to just say, this is what I need for myself is perfectly fine. So anything you'd add for that, Monifa?
No, I feel like assessing needs is probably the top part, is just being honest with yourself. Like no
Mm,
shoulds of what you feel that you should be doing. Like just, be honest and true to yourself.
that's a really good point.
So we're going to lean more now to the betrayed partners plan, which, like I just said, be honest with yourself. Um, Lots of times we feel like we should be lovey-dovey, or we should, buy gifts, or we should have sex because it's Valentine's Day. And no, whatever is comfortable for you, lean into that and, honor that. Communicate that also. um, you want to communicate what those needs are, so that way everyone's on the same page, and the other person's not trying to guess where you are, or trying to do things, and they're trying to do shoulds also, what they think that you should like, or that they're basing it on the past experience of what used to work for you, because now things are different. So communicate and be as open as possible about what those needs are for you, and what do you need space? Do you, like Dan mentioned, do you want to spend more time with the kids? Do you want to spend time with the kids? And then when the kids go to bed, you guys separate, or do you want to spend a little bit of time together on like an hour and then go to bed? Whatever it is, just communicate and be honest with yourself and honest with your partner as far as what it is that those needs are. And then plan with your support system. If you're not sure what this Valentine's Day is supposed to look like, talk it out. Talk it out in group, talk it out with your therapist, talk it out with, friends, family, people that you know that you can trust with your story, that aren't going to put shoulds on you. You want it to be an honest and safe space. People that will respect your story and respect your experience and respect this healing journey that you're on. So plan out with your support system something that can work for you, and test it on other people and see what you come out with. At the end of the day, you want to feel like you're filling your cup. You don't want to be drained at the end of all this, because it's already a lot going into this day as it is. And now you're even more drained or more traumatized by the end of the day. You want to make sure that you're putting into your cup, whether it be alone time for yourself, whether that be doing a hobby, doing something that's not even Valentine's Day related. Maybe you guys go on a family trip and has nothing to even do with Valentine's Day. That works too. Like whatever it is that works for you, be the main thing to take away from this is be honest with yourself, and don't fall into the traps of what should happen on Valentine's Day. So that way you are naturally just filling your cup and you're not taking a step back on your healing journey.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. If Valentine's Day is really about relationships, I know at least in my mind, it gets this extra. I have this heart feeling. It's about romance and love and all this stuff. But if it's really about relationships, then honoring where your relationship is right now is the most critical thing. That's what I'd say. Like just make
Mm-hmm.
sure you honor where you're at. And then if you're at the point in your relationship where you're like, I can't this expression of love, I'm not up for, that's great. It's fine. That's where the relationship is. And that's what this day should be.
Yeah, it should be any different.
So on the same thing as on the partner side, for the betraying person, the sex addict, you also want to plan with your support team. I've talked to some people, some addicts that they'll kind of create these big sweeping gestures. They'll, buy a new ring or something, these huge gestures that they might do. And some partners do want those big gestures, but I find like the more often than not, those big gestures are less appreciated than the little daily things every single day of, words and actions lining up, being clear and being, consistent with everything. So talk to your team. If your team, if you're having these big ideas about what you're going to be doing for Valentine's Day, really make sure you talk to your therapist, coach, sponsor, whoever's in your team, to be really clear about is this for you? Basically, who's this for? Are you doing this so that you feel better about yourself, so that you try to make up for wrongs? Is this really for yourself, or is it for your partner? What does your partner want? What did they say that they want this day to be? If they're saying they want it to be something different, then make sure you're doing what they want it to be this year. So I would, and kind of what Monifa said with for the partners, make sure you communicate. So asking questions. I know it's not, it takes a lot of the mystery out of things, but surprises are surprises are dicey. At least my experience. I think having some space to not have big surprises this year, and I've had people, partners say, literally, this is exactly the brand of gift that I want. This is the thing that I want, and there's no surprises. Um, you know, maybe you're someone who having some flowers would mean a lot to you because that was withheld from you prior to discovery. Great, but maybe flowers are really triggering, or jewelry, or these gifts. So that's going to gifts, being really careful about what kinds of gifts you're thinking about giving. What does your partner want or not want? And I'd say as a couple, making sure that you're talking this through as carefully as possible, because my default, if you don't know what your partner is wanting, I would almost always for this day steer away from anything romantic like lingerie or something that has the you know inkling of sex and sexuality. So I just be really careful about that, be really careful about gifts, something thoughtful, appreciative, knowing that in any time at this, especially a day like this, it's going to be triggering. So avoiding the fact that your partner is going to be triggered and feeling pain doesn't help either. So make sure you also open the space. Your partner may not want to take it that day. That's fine, but at least acknowledging the fact that you can recognize this would be a very triggering day and a difficult day. So, I mean, if anyone's watching this, that we already know that it's a triggering day. Um, so just knowing that uh, honoring what your partner wants is going to be really, really critical and help create safety. So whatever you need to do for yourself to hold the fact that um, you created this rupture in the relationship, and part of what you can do to help repair and heal is to be empathetic, supportive, caring, safe. So making sure, you know, again, I think following whatever the boundaries are, if you have a list of boundaries or specific boundaries your partner wants for the day, don't push past those. If your partner's saying, I don't want to you to initiate touch unless I initiate it, don't push past that. It might sound so obvious, but respecting those boundaries goes a long way towards building safety and helps repair the relationship. So I can't stress that enough. I mean, it might sound, I don't know what you'd say, Monifa, but it might sound completely obvious, but we just find sometimes you might have a list of boundaries in front of you for what the partner needs for safety, and if you're disregarding them and blatantly not following them, it erodes safety, erodes relationship. And especially on a day like this, it's going to make this even more triggering next time around next year. So this is an opportunity to really help heal and restore your relationship, but also help your partner to help heal their trauma too.
Yeah, because boundaries are, it's a blueprint, right? To safety, basically. Like it's kind of a gift. Like here's how you can help to maintain safety and create safety for your partner. And I think sometimes when it comes to special times like holidays, that there's probably an urge to want to push past the boundaries because you're feeling that it's a special day. So that way, it's it's a special day. So we should be doing something special extra. But no, still keep, if you're doing with the boundaries this whole time, like this is not a time to switch up and do something different. Like continue that path, keep adhering to the boundaries. So that way you can create safety. So that way in the future, then maybe you can do something different. But now is not the time.
Another thing, as you said that, Monifa, making sure to for on the addict side, also that doesn't mean doing it passive aggressively. It doesn't mean sulking about it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean, you know, putting in these little comments about how you're being a martyr or something. So just be really clear in this. If you take a victim stance on this day about how how hard this is for you on such a day to be honoring these boundaries, that's going to erode safety as well. So really take the opportunity. If you have feelings about it, again, talk to your team, your support team, have people that you can call, bookend stuff with your sponsor, your therapist, your coach, your team. But again, making this if you do it begrudgingly, and your partner's going to feel the energy behind it. If it's like done passive aggressively, that's not going to help either. So just use this as an opportunity. I guess I see this all as an opportunity. You have a huge opportunity to help heal your relationship by helping walk through the pain with your partner. That's sounds simple. It's really difficult to do, but it's really, really critical to healing.
Which is something that we talk a lot about at the practice, which is a content versus process. Because the content could be that you're following the boundaries, but then how are you going about doing it? Because there's a lot of information in the process. So don't pay attention to that. Don't just fall into the content and be like, well, I'm doing it, because that's not enough.
Right.
So romance and sex expectations, once again, being realistic. Can't stress that enough. Being honest with yourself. If that is not where you want to go as far as sex, but maybe you're okay with holding hands. Maybe that's a safe space for you. Or maybe you just want to sit and watch a show, binge watch a show that you guys have been watching or something. Like whatever it is. It doesn't have to be rose petals on the bed and this whole thing, candles and all that. If that is not where you are and that is not something that you want, then just say that that's not what you want and be honest with yourself and where you are in your healing journey. Keep it light if that's what works for you. If you just want to go to sleep, that works too. Like there's no one way to be when we're talking about romance and sex expectations. You anything else to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, I was thinking of the flip side for some partners. um they've been withheld, the
Mm,
romance, the rose petals has been withheld and prior to discovery. So there may be this extra desire. No, I actually want to be romanced this year because you didn't do that to me this whole time you were acting out. That's a tricky place. So I don't know if anyone's in that space, but I know we hear plenty of stories where we have
mm-hmm.
partners in that place where sex or romance was withheld from them. I guess I would say you can certainly ask for those, but I think also be realistic with yourself. What are you seeing? Are those, if you're wanting romance this year, have you been seeing it outside of this day? And if it's not there, I guess I'd just be careful what kind of expectations you put on yourself or for the day for yourself, if that's something you want. So just be, and maybe talk to your team or someone that knows your relationship a little bit more to say, is that even realistic? Um, and I guess there's a thing we haven't even considered or talked about yet, is for those that are either separated or divorced, or maybe they're triggered around this day not in a relationship, especially for betrayed partners. I can imagine for anyone in that situation, this is triggering. I think it goes back to caring for yourself. You can reclaim the day. You can love yourself. You can care for yourself. You can, there's different ways love shows up for you. It could be, you know, loving a pet or your kids or, yourself or whatever. So I think that's something I would say as well.
Yeah. And like what you just said about how there's different ways that love shows up. Because it's not just in a coupleship. And, even if you're not in the coupleship, even if you are in the coupleship and we're talking about romance and sex expectations, it doesn't necessarily have to be sex, and if you are looking, as Dan mentioned, if you are missing the intimacy, how is intimacy showing up in other ways to, like, is this really what you want? If sex is where you're leading towards, because that was something that was withheld for you, but was it showing up in other ways of being intimate that, this is actually where you want to be? So just really, talking that out with your support team, figuring out where you are, um, and how to honor yourself, whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship. Mm-hmm.
So we had some overview, some things we just kind of wanted to cover as we did an overview, but we also certainly wanted to open up if anyone has specific things they wanted that they're addressing in their relationship or for themselves. So if you have any questions, or if you have some things that you would like to have us cover, or specific scenarios you'd like us to cover, you can do that in the chat. That way nobody will be able to see that in the recording. So if you all have anything, we'd love to hear thoughts or specific questions you have. And I guess I'm just curious for those here, for watching, um, what is it about this day that's the most difficult for you all, and is there a way we can support you all?
Yeah, because some people have individual situations.
Ooh,
There's
that's a good
one.
question. Can you cover
So
that?
should partners care about how the addict is feeling on this day, or just focus on our own feelings?
I see the smile, Wanifa. What are you thinking? I know what you're thinking.
Because I'm gonna say focus on yourself. Do whatever feels true to you. Lots of times partners, and this may not be everyone's story, but lots of times partners spend a lot of time overextending themselves to others and putting themselves last on the bill. They're doing everything for their children. They're doing everything for their partners. They're just everything for everyone at all times. So I say focus on yourself, and then, and communicate that with your partner. But I say put self first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, and also maybe depend on how far along you are in healing. I mean, if this is years in, maybe a different story, but I completely agree with Monifa. I mean, what addicts generally do is they will put themselves in the victim stance, like kind of like I said earlier, which may pull you in, like how hard this day is for them, if they have feelings about it, and especially if you're saying, I want to have a spa day for myself, and I don't really want to spend time with you today. Like this is a triggering day, and I actually need some space. I mean, yeah, that might be hard to say or might be hard to hear, but to me, that's the addict's job then to go to their team and deal with the fallout of that, their own feelings about it. And then their team can be able to say, you know, why are we here in this place? Why is your partner wanting this? This isn't, you're not the victim here. You actually were the one that created the rupture. And this is the reason that your partner needs some space right now is because you did this. So that's our job on the addicts team to be able to say, you aren't the victim. You need to take responsibility. And if your partner says, I need some space, and you give them the space, then you're honoring the relationship and you're being a part of the solution, not the problem. But if you're moping around, or if you're, you know, having a difficult time and you're making it really clear passive aggressively that you're having a hard time, that's going to signal to the partner, a lot of it's going to communicate stuff. So I agree with Monifa saying I think partners generally care. Like it's hard not to care for somebody, especially your intimate partner, but just realize why you're in this place this year. It's not because, if this were prior to discovery, maybe a different story. Maybe you should have a different experience around what Valentine's Day might be. But the reason that we're doing this is because of the rupture in the relationship caused by sex addiction. So yeah, honor yourself is what I'd say too. Good question.
Thank you.
Anything on that one that is it hard to put yourself first? Oh, so maybe on that, we got another, it's kind of on that, what I was just
Yeah.
saying. So another point,
And
my
I do
husband
think that
who's,
it's hard to put
oh, sorry, go
yourself
ahead.
first, especially if you're a female betrayed partner, because from little girls, you're trained not to put yourself first very often. So another question that just came in, my husband, who is my qualifier, is still early in recovery and still is blame shifting. I wish his therapist would tell him he caused this. That's interesting. I see he's purchased something, but how do I reject it? That is a
That's,
good one.
man, that's tough. These are tough.
So the first part, I do think it's just a little interesting that I don't know, because I don't know the individual of the story. Um, I would hope that the therapist would be, helping him with attaining accountability over why things are the way they are now. But how do you go about rejecting it? Once again, I say just be honest. The thing is, when I say be honest, I feel that most of us, we don't want to be honest because we're afraid of how it's going to make the other person feel. So then it becomes about the person. It doesn't necessarily become about us speaking our needs and being true to ourselves. So, and I'm not saying you don't have to be mean about it, like, but you can still don't have to accept it, because once you accept it, now you're putting yourself back into a lower than position where you're not honoring yourself or your needs. So you can still say, I don't feel comfortable taking this right now with where our relationship is. This is just not what I want, and they have to deal with that. That's a part of them taking accountability on their end. So when you're talking about how do I reject it, I say just be honest. Like, being honest does not equal being mean. It So you're kind of reclaiming your power back and putting yourself first rather than just accepting it just because someone's giving it to you. What would you say,
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, on the first part too. So someone being in early recovery, unfortunately, some guys, some addicts in early recovery, many they don't understand betrayal trauma, which is sad. It's an extra pain, it's an extra trauma, right? That you have to try and you have to fight to have your voice heard, that they get it, which is even more painful because you're experiencing the betrayal and then you have to try and explain why you're betrayed. So it's even more painful. And then especially if it's being turned on you and you're gaslit, or there's darvo going on and blame shifting, it can be, of course, even more painful. So um, I think maybe just being even clearer, this is what I need for this day. And you don't have to, whatever the outcome, whatever the result is of that. And like what Monifa said, if you're saying it, this is for yourself, this is what I need for this day, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And then they have their own reaction. That's their reaction. Kind of like what you were saying, Monifa. I think that's a really, really important point, that it's not mean. It's just saying, this is what I need for my healing for this day. And because whatever the gift is, it sounds like you might know what it is. If you know what the gift is, and I don't know if it communicated what the gift was, or what you wanted or didn't want. And sometimes addicts will just blatantly like disregard what you had said. That's what I'm saying. Don't do that if you're an addict. Like, really listen to what your partner is saying and what they're wanting or not wanting. But I think, yeah, there's nothing mean about saying this. You could, thanks for the gift, but this isn't what I this isn't what I want this year. This is not helpful for me. Whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say no, no, thank you. And then here's the thing: what many addicts will do after that, then they'll get defensive, or they'll kind of go like, I'm trying, and they'll kind of go to this place of like, well, don't you see I'm trying? I'm really working hard at this, and then they'll kind of pull you to then feel bad. You don't have. That's just, if you can, whatever image you can do for that. Like, I have a colleague who says, put a Teflon shield over yourself. So this idea that whatever comes back afterwards, let it slide off you like water off a duck's back. You don't have to take that on. If this person likes being defensive, you don't have to take it on. Nope, this is what I want. You focus on yourself. This is your stuff. This is mine. Just let kind of whatever that energy that sort's coming at you, just give it back. You don't have to take that on, even if they're trying to put that on you, because that's what addicts do.
Mm.
So yeah, it sounds like you're in a it's new in the relationship, so it's got to even work triggering this year. It's fresh. So I think just
Yeah.
taking that time for yourself, you know, it's not our jobs to care for the other person in this, especially if they're the ones that created the betrayal.
Yeah.
So anything you'd say, Monifa, on that?
Yeah, I was gonna
Add?
say, because I'm seeing the more details you put in the comments, and there's going to be a lot of resistance. just with your situation, and you mentioned being in the beginning of this whole process, but the resistance, as Dan mentioned, that's his process. That's not something that you have to buy into and go down that road with him. Like, his process is his process, and your recovery is your recovery. So part of your recovery is owning that you don't want that gift and communicating that in whatever way feels comfortable to you. But you don't have to take on the fact that he's being resistant and then now, just go along with things. But I know it's hard. It's
Yeah,
not
we've
easy
had,
to deal with resistance.
it's really, well, some of this can get really confusing, especially if gaslighting was part of it and blame
Mm-hmm.
shifting stuff. So we've had, I think of plenty of stories where, you may be really clear, you've communicated, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, talking about gifts, this is what I want, don't want. And the addict, like, or you say, this is what I want. You can make it really clear. And then they get you something else. And then they'll, you're like, and it might be a thoughtful gift, but you were clear, this is what I wanted. And then they'll get mad at you because you're not accepting the gift that they're giving you, and they're
Mm-hmm.
putting it on you, and they'll kind of shift it, and you're kind of confused. You're like, well, that was thoughtful, so now I'm not really sure what to do with this. That's all their stuff. That's kind of this whole confusing kind of confusion making. So you're saying, if you're clear, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. If they're not able to honor that, just keep going that truth. I said what I wanted. They weren't able or willing to follow it. That doesn't work for me. I mean, that's the core of it. And they can, and that's where the on their team, that's what I'm saying, on their team, that's their job to help um, process their own stuff, get through their own victim stance, and hopefully say, well, what did your partner say they wanted? They, and then you
Mm-hmm.
got what? Oh, okay. Well, that's, you didn't do what they wanted.
Yeah.
What do you expect? It sounds simple, but that takes some time to get there.
I hope that helped.
Anything other specific situations that you're all in this year that we could talk about, process? We know this is so nuanced for everybody. Any other topics that we didn't cover about the day, or more specifics that you'd like to go into?
I know many times the topics of when around holidays, kids always comes up because you want to put on a happy face for the kids. And we're talking about like, oh, well, be honest with yourself, and then it's like, well, then how does that work with when you have children and you got to show up for the kids, but then you also want to be honest with yourself and maybe you want to withdraw that day. I always say, you want to, because there's no days off when it comes to kids. You can't just be like, need a day off today, or I'm taking a sick day. Maybe, schedule some time out for the kids and schedule time for yourself. So that way you're still getting in that time, but maybe you don't have to be on 24 hours. Maybe even scheduling that with your partner, like, look, I can only handle 1 to 2 hours, and then they go have a date together or something, or they take the kids, or we do something all together as a family, and then I need to separate myself. But just planning and scheduling time for the kids, so that way the kids don't end up being traumatized, or they have to feel the energy of what's going on between you two.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like the theme of not taking on the addict's energy or the addict's feelings, I think is an important one.
Because it's so easy to,
It's easy to,
especially when
especially if,
gaslighting is a part of it,
right.
for sure. Because many times when you have gaslighting, now you're gaslighting yourself and questioning your own reality as to, am I right? Am I wrong? Maybe they're just right. Like, yeah. So we know that as we're
And at
presenting
least in
things,
our,
it sounds easy peasy.
right.
You're just putting it all in a PowerPoint slide, but we understand that it's way more complex than that. So do know that if you don't want to talk about it here, we're both available that you can, and I'll put our emails actually in the chat.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, and that's the thing. I think if you can, whatever you need to do starting out the day, you know, for your own getting yourself grounded and centered, and go back to, if we can just boil down to what do I need for myself? What are my values? What do I need for the day? What's my truth for the day? That's all good. If it's, I mean, aside from if you're going to be abusive and belittling, and, you know, if you're going to be aggressive and hostile, that's a different story. But I don't assume anyone's going to do that. Aside from there, if you say I need X, Y, and Z for my safety, for my healing today, then that's perfect. That's what needs to happen this year. So I guess I just, going back to, this is what I need. Whatever happens on the other side, I don't need to take that on. And whatever visualization you need to do about, you know, keeping that energy away, and not having it kind of invade your own body or your own system, I think I find that can be really helpful.
So a lot of what we want to take from this is preparation. You know, just prepare yourself as much as possible so it's not the day's not hitting you like a ton of bricks when it comes.
Yeah, because we can, part of trauma PTSD is to avoid. That's part of it, is it's too overwhelming. I don't really want to deal with it. So I'll deal with it when it comes, which totally makes sense. But we're just trying to say, if there's little things to prepare, or at the very least, know if you have a safe, trusted person or team that you could call or text. If you're like, I'm kind of confused, this thing's happening. I thought I was clear, but now this. If you have your person or your team during the day that maybe can be your voice of holding you to, keeping you back to where you set out, knowing your intention for the day. If they know your intention, they can keep that in mind and keep you on track with that. I mean, that can be gold too. So having safe other women in your life, you know, support group, or whoever it is in your team, that's safe, and they understand this. That is really helpful too.
I guess the last thing on the slides, just a picture of our book, Surviving the Holidays. Now, granted, we usually show this during like the Christmas holidays, but there's a lot of great tips in here that work for basically all holidays. And a lot of what we've just been talking about is in the book also. So I highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, one thing we didn't even address, for this book, we talked about, you know, business travel.
Mm,
So if someone's traveling, you know, that's a possibility. I know it happens a lot during the, you know, in December holidays, but if someone's traveling, that can obviously be triggering in general, but then you add this extra pressure of this holiday. So there's a guide in there around, you know, a portable safety plan, which is helpful too.
yeah. Yes, this book will just help you get organized for when the holidays come about. And, you know, like I said, a lot of what we talked about, and in addition to other things, is in the book also. Oh, I don't see any more
Is there
questions
anything
coming
else? I mean,
in.
we definitely want to. Okay.
Nope. Oh, wait, one more. Um, oh, yes. That's, yeah, we'll talk about that separately.
What?
Okay. Nothing
Okay.
is a comment that came in that we'll talk
Was,
about separately.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, just getting thank yous. Thank you so much, everyone. And
Yeah, it's being recorded. We will post it on YouTube. I think, will you send out the link, Monifa, or we'll just
yes,
have it
yes, and
up
I'll
there?
send out the
Okay.
link once we have it. I know some of you did clock in a little late, so don't worry about it. It was recorded. We'll go ahead and send you the link to everyone that that registered beforehand. So I have your emails already.
So all I would say, just please, please, please care for yourself, be, you know, authentic with yourself. Whatever the day needs to be is perfect. So just honor that for the day. Anything you'd say, Monifa?
Nope. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.